Hello and welcome. We are so excited to welcome you to Living Cities Earth experience. Please enjoy the next few minutes, and we hope that this video and the ideas from our speakers will change your life to the better. Listen carefully. What particularly talks to you? What might have a chance to change your life and lives of people around you? Also, life of your place and our planet. We believe that you, the leaders of positive change, are those who define the future. So let's work together. And thank you for coming. And we're already in the next section. So we are talking about how to, create thousands of happy cities. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lev. And we just very briefly on that, what we want to do is join up these solutions, but also enable those solutions to be modified to fit the context. So we'd love to explore more on another call, but we're also starting to provide the platform free to community groups to start mapping what they're doing locally, but then to take it to their local governments and to get them subscribing to it to use across the local government as well. And we want to always share that revenue with the community group so that they can be rewarded for the work they do in joining the dots. So we want to explore that. We've got a number of different partnerships going in the UK now, but we may be able to explore that more globally as well. So very happy to explore that with anyone who wants to. I can see more questions, but I think that might have to wait for another time. And we're very happy, Pete, and some of my other colleagues to spend as much time as people want in exploring the ways we might really scale this as a grassroots up sort of process.
Lev, am I right in thinking we can give both Peter and Poran some time in this next session? Is that right? Just so that they know what the time limits are.
Of course, we just to quickly announce, because we are 1 minute into the next session, but we invited Poran to join it as well, because we will be talking. Maybe Alexander will also share. We are the co-facilitators here. The whole idea was to bring together luminaries with practical practical projects and who also want to work on a global scale and do so for many years. I see that Tim has joined. Hello, Tim, and Sandy, and Annaluz has joined, and other people are joining. So maybe I pass it on to Alexander. He quickly introduces what we are going to spend next hour talking about, and then we'll move around the circle and think how to do it all together.
Thank you so much, Lev. Good, Marilyn, you're here as well. Great. What a wonderful flow. It really is almost seamless. We're going from one topic that we just had now. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Poran, Guy, and Peter. And we're continuing the conversation now. Specifically, the ostensible focus of this next hour is on how could we create 1,000 happy, flourishing, thriving cities together. And that last word is key. So you know the old expression, we are the ones we have been waiting for. And as I like to say, we're not waiting anymore. Here we are. And it's the question, what are we all doing that builds on each other? My dear friend Gail Taylor would talk about how nature scaffolds itself. Nature always is scaffolding other processes that continue to emerge. How do we do that? How can we scaffold this emergence of these thriving, flourishing, livable cities? So what I would love to explore with you is to hear a little bit about your initiatives that speak to this. And as you share a little bit about how there are many people here. So we have particularly our guests who are sort of on tab include Lev, who's here, Marilyn, Annaluz Smitsman, who's there, Sandy Hinden, Sanford, and Ferial, and Tim Olson as well. So this is going to be a conversation group, but please, Guy, Puran, Peter, Alexei, John, and Linus, please do jump in. And I think Marina is here as well as hiding behind the Living Cities Earth logo. So what I would like to do again is to ask you to say a little bit about how you feel your initiative is helping create the conditions to, as Puran was talking about, connect the dots in a way that would help us to create the synergies in the emerging these 10,000 living cities. And when you pass it on to the next person, Peter, you're right up on deck. When you pass it on to the next person, right? I think perhaps we can do it popcorn in this case. So what I would say, don't necessarily pass it on. When you're done talking, put yourself on mute. We will know that the talking stick is in the center. And I would ask that the next person makes a connection to what was just said, that would somehow your initiative connects with what they are doing in some way. So in this sense, we can see how are we creating this living ecosystem of initiatives. Lev, first of all, are you good with this? Anything you want to add? 2 thumbs up. All right, Peter, on to you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to go next just because I wanted to connect with what you're saying and with what Lev had already previously asked, which was, what are the barriers to scaling and what do we need to scale? And so I wanted to speak a little bit to that. I'll just lower my hand because you talked about Bill Gates. Fantastic. I mean, one of the barriers is obviously finance. One of the main barriers. We're trying to build obviously a technology platform with all the wraparound services and support for people and training. All of that. It's a huge amount of money. If you think about the amount of money that is invested in social networks, for instance, I mean, multi-millions. And we're not even on our first. So we need to raise that sort of money if we are genuinely serious about building a technology platform that will then become some sort of, I like to call, a cooperating system for planet Earth. We have operating systems for our computers, but what we want to obviously is to co-op. And we need to build that cooperating system. I believe Puran has he spent the last 30 years making that first step. And I believe what I can bring to the table is 20 years of thinking about the main components of that cooperating system, the route map of how that can be built. And obviously that's a big topic, but we can go into in as much detail as you like at any point. But I'll just touch over I did touch on the main point of that in the last piece, in terms of the piece that Puran's built, which is mapping strategy. What do we want to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? And how are we going to measure it? And then people want to move on to geographic mapping. What assets do we have available in the local area? And then it's about data. What data sets do we have on soil quality, air quality, water quality? All of those things then build up a picture of health in our local communities. And once we know how healthy our communities are, we can then look through the solutions that already exist. If you think about how many entrepreneurs have solved problems of how to regenerate the soil or improve the air or clean up the water, they're all there jumping up and down wondering, how can I scale this solution? Those solutions then can be matched to the health of your community, and then we support people as they opt in, as they pledge in, to coordinate around those templates, adapt them to their local area, and we scale them across the 10,000 cities that you're right. So there's all sorts of detail in there. But when you're talking about Bill Gates, obviously he's built those systems that were largely based on similar sort of protocols, mapping in certain areas in terms of where diseases had broken out and where people were getting healthy, where they're not getting healthy, and all that sort of stuff. So that would be a really good foundational piece. All the components already exist. The only thing that hasn't been done is really to pull those components into a comprehensive cooperating system. So it can actually happen really quickly if we can pull the resources together. And to raise money, what you need is a really good team that people can trust, and you need the authenticity. So if the people that are in the room here and the people that you're all connected with, there is absolutely no reason why we can't come together and form that team. We need to all come together around that route map and buy into that route map, and then we go out and pitch for that money, and we make it happen.
So much, Peter. So there's so many connections here. I want to, again, as the next person wants to come on to follow up, make the connections, and then share about what they're doing, that builds on. Just to mention who's in the room here, and I'm going to go around a little bit on my screen. So Marilyn Hamilton is one of the co-founders of the Living Cities Initiative and comes with a tremendous background based on the Integral City Framework, which really is the core original inspiration for this entire initiative. So wonderful, again, that she's here with us. I'm just going on my screen now. Fariel Puran is here. She's waving. There she is. As in representing of Ignite Life and several other crossover initiatives, but also very much focused on the leadership that is needed to be able to make the change happen in the world in a collaborative way. You know, this new economy that we were just talking about, the cooperating system. I love that. This brings me to Tim Olson, who is also waving madly over there, so we can see who he is. There he is. And he is working with the Social Systems Lab, which is a kind of a combination of several initiatives that include Kodu and Kodu Earth, which is a platform that Linus Svensson is also, who's listening, is also very integrally involved in, who's here. And it has the Connectathon and several other particular activities, including something called the Altruistic Wallet, which I'm sure Tim will be talking to us a bit about. Annalise Smitsman has made a heroic effort to be with us here today because she is just back from several weeks, I think more than a month away. And now she's back with her family, her two young children who have missed her tremendously, and she was meant to spend the weekend with them, but she's taking time out to be with us in representation of Earthwise and the Earthwise Center and Earthwise initiatives and the Constitution for a global civilization. And so fantastic to have you with us, Annalise. Many serious initiatives that she's heading up and will tell us about. And Sanford Hinden, who goes by Sandy, who's over there waving. Now we see who he is. There he is. And who is heading up an initiative called Wiseocracy. And that also has a tremendous number of sub-initiatives connected with it. And the whole idea behind Wiseocracy is, again, as Jonas Salk will talk about, survival of the wisest, not just of the fittest in the competitive frame, but how is it that we can bring into being different culture at the level of our entire planet? So how do we bring this down to the cities now? And Peter was just calling for and asking for this connection that we can do based on the models that Puran has shared earlier as well, and that he shared together with Guy. So I know who could go next, but it's frankly all of you. So please, who would like to share a little bit in connection with how do we curate this emergence? Tim, please.
Cool, thank you. First off, I'm in Cape Town and we have rolling blackouts here, so that's why I'm looking a little bit ghoulish because I'm using an extra lamp. But hopefully power should be back on in the next couple of minutes. That's about color of face. I wanted to just say that just check my notes. The One Planet framework looks super exciting. I'm sorry that I kind of joined a bit too late to get the full presentation, but it's very aligned with what we're working on. Peter, you made a lot of points that I wanted to speak to weave together, but maybe I should start. Oops, I got a cat jumping up and wants attention. Maybe I should start with Alexander. You said your friend, nature scaffolds itself. And if I was to think of something that the Kodu platform that we're working on, it started out as a social network for change makers, or I've sometimes called it Tinder for change makers. The idea is that you go in, you create a profile. These are my values. These are my interests. This is what I can bring to the table. And then the network or the app would sort of match you with with other with projects out there that are suitable, or people out there that are suitable to co-create things with. Oh, there we go. But it is more of it's sort of a social network focused on change makers. And I should say that Ferial is also part of the team. So maybe she can also elaborate a bit later on it. But it's very much at this point a tool for discovery. So it's a social network with a map, basically. So you can see on the planet, we're using Mapbox, you see on the planet where you are and where other people are, which is a good start for social networks. And that means that it gives you can zoom in quite close using Mapbox. So if somebody's running a project, you could, in theory, zoom in and see a satellite image of like the project they're running. But I'd also like to use it more as a map of not just geography, but a map of data. So you could have demographics, you could have like causes of death, you could have many other things on this planet and could be co-created. So it's a bit like a Google Earth without Google being involved, but rather being curated by the humans on the planet. And I like what you said, Peter, about different. Like you could find out about different soil types, just on a map, and you could find out about best practices using the map. We're in the process, still early days, but we have a beta up and running, and I can share the link later if you'd like to have a look. But the idea is that if you want to create a project, or you want to announce to the world what you're doing, or you want to post best practices, we want to sort of create a system where you can search either geographically or using hashtags or using SDGs to find what you're looking for, and then create a system where other people can, I guess you could say, upvote or endorse various types of articles or various types of information. So like, I think this is a really good article about low water use soil management in sub-Saharan Africa, like whatever it is you're looking for. So rather than just Googling it and getting a whole bunch of links, you kind of find the things that people that actually use these practices are using. So that's very briefly about the network we're building. It's based on an open source platform or software building called Circles. So Kodu is simply or technically like the first network that is using the backend that we are also currently building, which is completely open source. We have a few developers and a few more coming in. And our goal is basically that everybody should be able to set up their own Circle server. And then participants should be able to just get information from many different servers and many different networks. So individuals don't have to belong to a single network. They can enter through one network or through their own server at home. But the idea is that they can you can easily find information across the networks, and you decide which servers do I subscribe to. So more like a federated system. Eventually, it'll be entirely decentralized, but that's sort of our step between now and then. And at the moment, the technology that we bring to the table is not advanced enough for us to run several parallel servers at the moment. So now we're just running on Kodu, and there's my light. And then I just, as Alexander mentioned, the altruistic wallet, I think that could be of interest, because we're also looking how do we fund the commons in the future. So we've been playing with this notion of an altruistic wallet, and it started as an idea that, okay, we're building a network, we're not for profit, so what if we have 1 million users and we have a profit of $1 million every year? What do we do with that? And after some thinking, we said, well, we return it to the users to decide where this money should go. But rather than it going into you buying ice cream, you have to give it to somebody else, hence the notion of altruism. So the idea is basically you get a dividend every year, depending on how the system works, and then you simply vote with that dividend. Okay, I think this particular project is really important, or Annalise is doing a really exciting project. I'm going to put my money towards her project, or I can divide it up between many projects, or I can simply have say that, oh, I'm going to delegate the contents of my altruistic wallet to the people that are most successful at picking good projects, and then they can spend it. So it's a bit like a decentralized system without necessarily using cryptocurrencies or having a DAO at this point. So that's the altruistic wallet. And now I should be quiet.
so much, Tim. And I am going to suggest that what we do here is continue with Ferial is up next, and that we're going to stay with the focus on the current lineup of speakers who were asked as we go through that first round. Then we'll open it up to other people. For example, Linus is working very closely with Tim on all of this, and it'd be great to have his view as well on this. But let's do that when we get to the second round, just to make sure we go through all of these. We'll, and I did want to say something else that, of course, has slipped my mind immediately as I wanted to say it. So that's all right. What we'll do is we'll go on with Ferial now, and then we'll go with Anna Luz, who's up next. Please, Ferial.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Really great to meet all of those that I'm meeting for the first time. And of course, wonderful to be with those that I work alongside. And I want to start off by talking about a puzzle piece and a puzzle, really. And I want to give a huge shout out to what Peter Anderson had said. I really think there's something to be said for us in this moment to really come together in a very, I want to say, strategic way. I recognize that we've also got our trauma, right? Because we have tried to play together in the past, and you know, sometimes things would go wrong. And I think like we've gone away and we've done some inner work, and I'm hoping that we're now ready to re-engage again and really do this well, because I think it's that moment. This is just, I just sense it in my heart. It's that moment. And with that said, it is hard. It is hard to find the leveraging points between what we do, but we're going to have to listen in very, very carefully because it is there. And so that's part of what I really do is that, listening into that, meeting up with many people all the time, trying to figure out where are those leveraging points. So I'm a weaver, right, between what everybody's actually busy with. So what I would say here is that I'm going to probably share a few initiatives that I'm involved with in various different capacities. So the first one I'm going to share is something we call SRG journeys. And they are the acronym for Stop, Reset, Go journeys. And what this is really about is probably that bottom layer of how do we human well, right? And if we're going to bring this all together, and I as I'm going out there, I don't see any shortage of solutions or innovations. I see an inability for us to collaborate at a whole other level, which is now required. And so even though we've done our individual inner work, it's now that how do we negotiate and navigate this space with one another so that everyone is feeling that win-win. But some parts of this would have to be laying down some of our names and our flags and our things. And we're still finding that a little bit hard to do. So SRG Journeys is really about how do we help our evolutionary leaders to get to that level of working together, of planning together, of strategizing together. Because the point is we're wasting a lot of time with this, doing our own thing. Because I honestly, I wasted a whole bunch of time. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff, but the point is that it's just that I don't have within me everything that I need for this. So I need every one of you in this room and the others that are not here right now, because that's how we're going to do this. And so SRG Journeys, I realized today I had a meeting with a friend of mine called Michael Haupt from South Africa. And Michael is doing this incredible stuff. So I'd like to throw that out to us here right now, even to say, so Michael and I are starting to say, okay, I see that I have the first part. Michael has the second part. I've got the third part. Michael's got, so we're kind of going to layer stuff like this. And so I know Pavel Luksha, for example, that was in here earlier. I know that Pavel's working on some incredible stuff. And because I've been so busy, I didn't go and sit down with Pavel, and even though I've known him for quite a while. So I feel like I need to do that, right? But so my invitation here is whoever you know out there right now. So SRG Journeys is not... it's not about doing the inner work. It's about awakening us to what that process is, how essential that inner is, that we need to couple with the outer development. So if there is any of you out there that are doing these projects, this type of thing, or to do with education and leveling us up, maybe come and speak to me so that we can do that together. The other part of what Michael is doing is Michael is gathering really amazing high net worth individuals that you talked about how do we finance some of this. So what he's doing is making sure that we are able to communicate it in a way that these high net individuals that have now also done that shift within their own hearts are saying, right, now we can engage, because they're tired of the greenwashings and the silly things that aren't connecting up. They want to see evolutionary strategy, stuff that is going to shift systems. And so I think we have that stuff here, but we got to talk to each other. And Michael possibly can even help us weave some of that in a deeper, more granular way. So that's that. And then I will talk about something that we started working on a while ago called the Transform app. So I love what Perrin had just shared. And I'm thinking, hey, Perrin, can we talk about this? Because the Transform app is about gamifying that that paradigm shift, not necessarily for the evolutionary leaders, but for citizens, for people, even just understanding the impact that they're having. So we have this app that we're working on to gamify that and just to get them into that process of thinking now differently about how they're contributing within their cities and the communities and even in their homes, right? And then, so please speak to me about if anybody's busy with that. So we've got the groundwork laid for the Transform app. And the Transform app has been something we've developed to go alongside with something that I know Anna Luce had been working with some friends of mine on a while ago called the Tipping Point Festival. So Anna Luce, you'd be happy to know that we've resurrected it. And we're starting to work on this. And in an earlier session, some of the people brought up the idea that how do we make cities happier, right? So people celebrating together and people, this change stuff, that we don't make it so hard that they don't know how to integrate with that, but actually bring them together in these massive celebrating spaces so that from there we can journey them. So the Tipping Point Festival is really about that. At the moment, we've got a few cities that we're looking at to do this in over the next year and a half. And this would be about testing it, about proof of concept, and then moving it over into prototyping. So we've got Gujarat in India coming along quite well with their planning, and we're going to hopefully be doing that this year. So again, if there's anybody out there, and of course we're going to need to work with mayors and people planning in cities and things like that to do a Tipping Point Festival for their area. And this would be also a space where people like us that are working on these solutions are able to bring that in a very playful kind of way to community, where they can start to touch and feel and taste, because otherwise these solutions and ideas remain here, and that's not good enough, right? It needs to go to those who want to implement in their cities. And then lastly, I'd talk about the Sonic network. Sonic is a network I'm a part of in the UK, headed up by Nate Whitestone, an amazing guy who's kind of brought us together around what we call sociocratic neighborhood circles in Europe. And this is where we now empower citizens to take responsibility and step up in their towns, their communities, in fact, in their little neighborhoods. And it was built on the work of Joseph Rathinam from India, who had kind of done this over 30 years, created these neighborocracies. And so it really is about bringing sociocratic ideas right down to the ground and then connecting. So what we've done differently with Sonic is that we received some funding from the EU to actually create a handbook that we now have available that can put into the hands of people in cities everywhere on how to actually establish their Sonic. And it really is about bringing, like, asking citizens to kind of take responsibility, but also in that process, they are able to then ask of their local governments and their local community councillors and that to be held more accountable for what they're doing. So it becomes this beautiful partnership. And I think empowering them to have that kind of agency on how I am governed and how my neighborhood is governed is really, really important as well. So with that, I could go on for a while, but I'm going to give the space over to somebody else and say those are some of the initiatives that I'd like to drop here today and say perhaps they could be useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ferial. And just as I'm weaving back and forth in the interstices here, what you were saying about connecting and about linking up and about finding each other. This is it. Your organization, Ignite Life, is doing fantastic work exactly around this. And I think what we are maybe think as we continue now, it's perfect that Anna-Loes is going to be, Anna-Loes Smitsman is up next. And I think what I wanted to mention, a couple of things. First off, Tim has already put into our chat the link for the Kodu Earth, just to see what he's doing. Please check there. And since I'm just mentioning it now, I'm wondering, Tim, maybe you can put it again so people are now aware as I flag it. This is the link for what Tim was talking about. Fariel, if you could put a link to what you are doing, that would be helpful. And I think each time we go, if there can be a link that you can put also into the chat, we can take it forward in that way. Finally, just to mention that in a way, this is the kind of spirit that what Peter was just mentioning. Also, how do we create a roadmap, right? He put into the chat there, a kind of way that we can understand better where the strengths and weaknesses are, how we can complement each other, and where the synergies are. This is what we're hoping will come out of this engagement. So these 3 days here with the summit hopefully will lead to this boiling point, as sometimes it's called in a good way, where we can see, here's how we need each other and can work better together. And then this is the ongoing work of the Living Cities Earth initiative, but it is truly no one's initiative. It is all of your initiative, all of our initiatives. And that's exactly what I think Anna-Loes is going to help us see as well, because Earthwise is doing that kind of bigger holding for everyone. Over to you.
Thank you so much, and so wonderful to be here with you. Indeed, I've just come back from literally just landed 5-week trips. I think I must have touched base on at least 30 cities in the United States and in Europe. I'm now in Mauritius. So as this is for Earth Day, I like to weave in that perspective, right? Why are we all coming together and in celebrating Mother Earth? And the last city I was in Bussum in the Netherlands, where there was a conference with Paul Polman about becoming net positive, the transition to net positive organizations. So as I've been in so many of these talks, before that Sedona launching the Hollow movement, and there are also again hundreds of people coming together with very much the same kind of questions that we're asking here, understanding the urgency of what is going on right now, knowing that we are not becoming a living system fast enough. For Earthwise, always our foundation is to start with living systems. So living systems make life possible and thrivable on our planet on the basis of billions of years of evolution, of collaboration, and of co-creation. And it seems that that's the piece that humanity has forgotten. So we've become very mechanistic systems, and now it's like we're looking for finding our ways back again, how to be wise, like our planet. And just want to, for us to presence that right now, to really ask ourselves, what is asked for us right now? What's the pattern of collaboration that we are seeking? What's the pattern of resource sharing, coordination, and then from there, what's the type of technology that can really support that? What is the common focus? How can we accelerate and support each other? What does it look like for us here on the call? Everyone who's participating, also everyone who is participating by watching this right now as this is being broadcasted live. How does it feel to be in a living system that is like a living city? Yeah? Marilyn and I had a wonderful conversation several years ago when we explored that as well, and she shared a beautiful vision around what she sees as living cities. Marilyn, thank you so much, because that really stayed with me. Because you were really approaching that as a living system. As I'm listening in here, what's emerging for me as well is the sense that there's almost a new form of city. We have what we know traditionally around cities is where we're living, place-based, but perhaps we ourselves here are a hybrid kind of digital twin city too. So that would be interesting to explore also just in the same way that indigenous people have often spoken of this time as the rise of another kind of supercontinent, and maybe this digital twin supercontinent, as we long ago were a supercontinent, Gondwana, before there were the emergence of the different continents. So just want to bring us some unifying perspectives here. What does it mean for humanity to become net positive, to cohere, to collaborate, and to start acting as a living system, realizing we are part of one larger planetary body, the Earth herself, as we are right now going in fast speed through the universe. So what Earthwise is contributing and what we like to support here. So I want to talk not just about what we do, but I'd rather would say, what can we, and many of us from the community of Earthwise were here actually as well, and our partners, what can we support in this emerging new pattern that we are starting to see, where the imaginal cells becoming imaginal organs, the imaginal organs becoming an imaginal body. So that this new emerging consciousness has hands to act, feet to be grounded, eyes to see, a heart to feel, because I think that is really the deeper shift that's going on. So one of them is the Earthwise Constitution for Planetary Civilization. That's freely available. It serves really as a new social contract for helping to come into a common focus, also common commitments. We are now working on gamifying that. So I'm hearing from some of you as well that you're gamifying that. As a gamifying element, I'd love to see how we can play your game in the same way that we can play each other's game, so that everyone who's participating starts to see of how do we, by playing each other's game and gaming, humaning very well, shift how humans play the game of life on planet Earth. Then the technology part. So we've been working with Tim and his team to create the technologies for an emerging alliance, partnership alliance, and everyone there is welcome to join, and vice versa. And that's been really wonderful. So we have also, with the technology part, with our partner Haifa, what we've been doing is co-creating DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, that are very important tools for living cities, because it gives people the governance tools also to really get involved in decision making, while also creating new economies. That are the economies as living systems, and that are economies then also that are emerging from this new pattern that we are seeing here as we are weaving that together. So these are also token-based business models underlying that. I think one of the critical factors what these DAOs can do and how they can also attract funding as well as investment is that it can become possible to have a portfolio of projects that can therefore be funded and co-stewarded together by the members of those DAOs and token holders. And I think what that is doing is addressing the scarcity dynamic that is happening among many of the nonprofits. Overall, in my travels, I've heard from almost every nonprofit the same thing: lack of resources, lack of resources. If only we have more resources. And what I've often seen is because of that lack of resources that people are all fishing in the same pond. And therefore, there is an indirect competition. Whilst we're speaking the language of collaboration, people are still feeling like, I better hold on to my resources. So what we're seeking to do, I would love to do that even better with all of you, because we can only do this together, is actually to demonstrate a whole new model of how we attract and then also coordinate, distribute those resources, and by so doing, creating these new economies. And so this is what we're doing also in the Haifa network, where we are creating the possibility for all of those DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, using the same software language so that they can even start to speak with each other, and it becomes much easier, therefore, to scale. We're working with lawmakers in both Liechtenstein and in Mauritius to looking at what is the way that this can be incorporated into cities, so that we can actually work with the law is a supportive mechanism. That means a whole new way also that it's pushing systemic change at higher levels of policy. Yeah, there's so much more that I can say about that. I feel I better pause here because there's many more here that want to speak, but maybe we can just really reflect on for ourselves here, what are the qualities and what are the behaviors of this new pattern for our collective thrivability, and what is it that we also need to let go of, so that we can truly collaborate and co-create better and more coherently and be truly a support for each other. Thank you.
Fantastic, Anna-Luz. Thank you so much. Please do put some of the links into our chat so that we can connect. And again, the idea here is we're looking for something beyond just the multi-initiative, but the trans-initiative potential, right? So we talk about multidisciplinarity, where you say as several disciplines, each one, let's say in a study, is going to contribute one chapter from about what makes a thriving city. A multidisciplinary study would be looking at the economics of it, and then the sociology of it, and then be looking at the infrastructure of it, and be looking at and each chapter would be on its own, but not really woven together. A transdisciplinary work is saying, how are all of these one initiative truly? And how is all of these emerging? How are all of these emerging into an integral effort or a meta initiative? That is, I think, what we need to be listening for here with each other. Otherwise, we can share our respective initiatives, and it's like, wow, you're doing such amazing work, and it's so similar to mine. And now I'm going to keep doing mine, and you keep doing yours. That we need to avoid the Tower of Babel. So the question here is, how do we create and co-create interdependent, not codependent, but certainly not independent initiatives? And I think, Anna-Luz, you were just speaking to that. Fantastic. We'll go with Puran, and then we have a few more of the, we just want to mention who we have on deck still. We have Sandy, Marilyn, and Lev to share with us, but we have time. So Puran, please. And you're mutable.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to share that life doesn't have a plan or a roadmap. Okay. Emergence doesn't have a plan or a roadmap. And I think although we can talk about things where we might want to end up, I am going to suggest that actually the core of this is really what are the processes we want to support, and where might those lead? So for me, I think, what I've learned, and for example, the difference between conservation and rewilding is conservation has a roadmap to what species you're going to protect. Rewilding actually puts in place the processes which allows nature to thrive. So for me, it's much more about the processes and just seeing what emerges from those processes. So that's what I think we should look at, is what are the processes that we need in order to support regenerative, healthy systems, and focus more on those than on roadmaps. I think a bit of a roadmap is useful, a bit of writing different chapters is useful, but actually what are the processes which enable those things to emerge so that we won't know. And in fact, there's no one who can create a roadmap from where we are now to where we need to be. And there isn't an endpoint. Life doesn't have an endpoint. So I think it's more about what are the healthy processes we can put in place. And those processes are a combination of competition and collaboration. So let's not try and agree on everything because we won't. And I think we see a lot of failure of initiatives which are trying to achieve agreement on stuff. Let's think about what are the processes we want to put in place, which gives us this good tension between collaboration, cooperation, and in fact, reading Braiding Sweetgrass by the fantastic Wal Kimmerer, is even things like lichens, which are a combination of or a coming together of two organisms, fungi and algae, for example. They sometimes collaborate, and they collaborate when times are difficult, but then they also go their separate ways, or certain types of lichens go their separate ways. So let's so all I want to say is let's think of more about processes rather than endpoints or plans.
What, Poran? A good reminder, and I know some people have used the term co-opetition, also competition, but cooperation plus competition as co-opetition. Yes, this is that dynamic tension. It's beautiful. If it was all just preaching to the choir and patting ourselves on the back and saying we're doing the same things, there's no leverage truly to push off of. So excellent. We have Sandy, Marilyn, and Lev. Who would like to take up the sharing? Sandy.
I'm Sandy Hendon. I've been developing Wiseocracy for about 2 years now, 2 or 3 years. And I connect the dots between psychology, economics, and politics. And that's been leading towards trying to create wiser people, wiser economics, wiser politics, and wiser governance. And so I'm looking at the processes in there that help create that, and I've been documenting them. I'm keeping it on the website for free, and people can open up many different documents there with extensive work that's been done. And I realized that, interestingly, that there's 9 levels, I just jotted them down, of people, relationships, neighborhoods, communities. Cities is the 5th one in the middle there, and then regions, like I do regional work also, and then national, international, and on the planetary level. And I realized that I've been working in 8 of those areas, and the missing piece is cities. I've done no work with cities at all. But I've done all the other work on all those other levels, and I continue to do so. And I see there how they're connected. Somebody mentioned, I think Poran mentioned before, that the human psychology is really distorted right now, and so I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing regarding men, there's so much work being done for girls and women. And I realize we need work for boys and men, because they're the ones that get into trouble. There's the ones that create trouble. They create it through violence. There's domestic violence on both parts for men and women. But there's in the United States, where I do my work mostly, 90% of incarcerated people are men. So men don't know how to think well. They don't know much about emotional intelligence that Feriel was talking about. And so I'm trying to help people think better, feel better, and behave better. And that all interacts through the wisdom area, on many different levels. So, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks, Alexander, for inviting me in. And I'm astounded at the wisdom that you all have, the intelligence you have, and the ideas that you have. So I'm in a learning process, and I appreciate that you're thinking about cities, because cities are kind of large units. I live in suburbia. That's why I realized that originally I didn't think I fit into this group, because I live in suburbia. It's suburban. It's not a city. But I realized I have a community here that I don't feel connected to, and because of economic reasons. And so there's a lot of interplay between economics, politics, and psychology, how one feels, and so this is a curious learning journey, a curious process for me to see. We'll see where it goes. And I like Poran, I like what you said, that we don't have the blueprint, we don't have the plan, and things emerge, and you just have to keep letting them emerge, and the processes that you create are very, very helpful for emerging things. I meet with Alexander once a month with another friend globally, someone in Germany, and that's a process. That's a monthly process that helps us stay connected, and it helps us emerge, and we support each other in our own personal development. So thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Sandy. And indeed, this is the humaning that we're talking about. How do we human well? And thank you for modeling that so beautifully, Sandy, as well, with the heart. I can sense the heart as you speak. That's so lovely. So thank you for that. Sandy, you also have in your Wiseocracy, so please put the link there as well. And Fariel, just so you know, Sandy also has the gamification process in Wiseocracy. He has a Wisdomania game that he's also developing for engaging people to learn in a serious fun. It's fun, but it's about serious things such as the health and well-being of ourselves. And I wanted to mention this question of identity and belonging, central to what it means after we explore what it means to human and what it means to be in a city, what it means to think like a city. John Seed asked us to think like a mountain. How do we think like a city? And I think these are the questions that several of you have raised here specifically. And we go from the urban center to the suburbia, to the peri-urban area, to the rural area. So these are gradations. There's never a boundary that says, here it stops. So how do we move in those porous frames of identity that are inclusive and not exclusive? So we don't say, oh, I'm not a city dweller, so that's not my business. Or say, I am not a rural person. All I need to do is focus on, this is, as Puran has asked us to think about, systemically, this is what we need to be thinking about. We need to think about the integration of all of this, because we have aspects of the whole world in the city, and it connects to all of the things that are not in the city. So we still have Marilyn and Lev.
Thank you, Alexander, and all wise beings who have come before in this session. I was very happy to listen to you as I spoke a lot in earlier sessions. So Sanford, I think our paths have crossed once or twice, and don't feel badly that you haven't thought about cities. I've been given the task, the challenge of cities over 2 decades ago, and within the integral movement, I still struggle to get people to look at cities as a system. And I have to make a lot of, I have to advocate for cities as a scale of human systems. And so I do. It is a calling that I've been given. I can say several observations from this very rich exchange. One is, we'll go back to where Alexander started us with his friend Gail Taylor, who I also go back probably about 2 decades with, and she talks about scaffolding, but I also secretly know that what she really likes is mesh working. So mesh working is actually something that lets us do both the processes that Puran speaks to and the structuring that others of us are attracted to. And in fact, if life scaffolds itself forward, if it emerges, it does both. And the reason it does both is because life is emerging ever greater complexity, and it needs the structures. And actually, that's how it manages. It's how I understand it manages energy. That once it figures out in self-organizing ways how to do something, then it says, right, got it, there's the structure. Now let's continue to go on and experiment with all the self-organizing. It is how our brains are organized. And for me, that's one of the holograms that reveals itself as the city, the human system. And you look down on, as Elizabeth Saturis and I have both looked down on cities and said, oops, there we go. There's a self-organizing, structuring system that we can see. Now we get to see it not only from planes, but from drones, So I feel like we need both sets of wisdom, and that life conditions are such that sometimes what we're called to do to serve life the greatest is the structuring, and other times it's the self-organizing, and we can't forget about either one of them because we need both. The other conversation I had on a beautiful recording that I had with Jude Currivan, who some of you will know is a beautiful cosmologist and just wrote a book called The Story of Gaia. And so I had been sharing with the vision holders team for Living Cities Earth my vision for the future. And I often will, when I'm challenged to do this, go into the 7th generation. And there's so many ways that you can hold 7 generations. And in this particular case, I was thinking, I had thought about this in relation to another story I was telling about the 7th generation for me now is the great-grandchildren of my great-grandchild. So I do have a great-grandson. So I can picture, it unfolds that much further ahead of him. And so I spoke about my vision of 7 generations from now of what living cities on a happy planet would look like. And everyone went, yes, that sounds really good. And that's very inspiring. And I really feel it in my heart. And amongst the co-founders of Living Cities Earth, I heard, but we don't have 7 generations. We need to do something now. So in conversation with Jude, she reminded me, well, another way to look at 7 generations is to look at the city, as I have done before, and say, okay, I have all the ancestors, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and then I can roll forward from me to my great-grandchild. There's 7 generations, and they're all coexisting, alive at the same time. So it allows us to think about time in a compressed now. And Jude said, in fact, that's what we need to do, is think in 2 ways about time, that instead of us all doing the same thing to heal, restore, regenerate, and create a truly healthy planet, not in sequence, we need to work in parallel. And I think this is a calling that many of you are speaking to as far as collaborating and cooperating or cooperating, or as Peter was saying, doing the whole cooperative approach. There's so much that we need to learn about that and unlearn, as some of you have said, about what we shouldn't continue to do. So that so much of that means for me, I have to release some of my, holy cows and things that I, haven't wanted to let go of. Like even just rethinking the 7 generations meant I have to go back and rewrite a few things. But the other thing that Jude reminded me about, having biology and her many credentials, is, what we can be to the system is catalysts. And this is something that perhaps Living Cities Earth is called to be, is a catalyzer, a catalyst. And I remember when I looked at James Greer Miller's great tome, which was Living Systems, and looked up catalysts in a very scientific definition, I went, wow, catalysts change systems and then they disappear. They don't get any credit at all. They just have the capacity to change the system. And that is the service that they bring. So it seems to me this dilemma that we face of learning and unlearning, of reframing time, of knowing that life is emerging, that being able to be willing to give up that which maybe seemed the most sacred thing that we hold, it's like releasing into life itself. the last thing I would say, that one of the things I've always, or that I have certainly come to admire in cities, is they contain so much diversity, so much capacity, so much intelligence. And many of you know that's exactly how I wrote about cities when I was reframing it, is that what if cities are a complex adaptive living system? How would they think? What would their evolutionary intelligences be? And the driving evolutionary impulse, I believe, is right at the center of all the other intelligences that we have touched on in many ways here. So I do, as some of you know from earlier discussions today, I am an optimist. So I tend to be happy even in the face of challenges that we face on the global level, which I think are very serious. And I myself in Fintorn here, I'm working on carbon neutral 2030. I've just finished reading 4 projects, one on organic food, another on affordable housing in glass houses, in the whole ambient heating, and remaking our microgrid. Wow. You know what I just realized in listening to today? We are doing the whole damn thing here at Fintorn, and we're only an eco-village. But we have taken the courage to look the things in the face that made us in the first 60 years what we are today, because this isn't going to, continuing that is not going to take us into the next 60 years. And what the scientists say is that we need to make a lot of decisions now before another 60 years has elapsed. So anyway, I feel like a lot of you have pointed to that we have all the intelligences that we need, and that perhaps our roles is to catalyze the change, to shift so that we can actually live long enough to apply them. Yeah. Thank you.
Marilyn, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, Noam Chomsky said that optimism is a strategy for the future. I like thinking of it that way as well. So thank you for that. Let's move straight to Lev and see if there's still some time for final reflections from everyone before we wrap up at the top of the hour. Lev.
It's interesting. Thank you very much, Alexander, and everyone who spoke before. Many points of resonance, really, and to optimism being sort of the strategy for the future, I would also like to add that collaboration is the skills of 21st century. So, and it's not easy, right? I mean, it's easy initially, at first get to know each other, etc. But then when you go down the actual projects, you have many different challenges. And what I discovered is that it depends on my identity to what degree I'm able to collaborate with other people. So if I think about myself as a separate individual, and there are 8 billion other individuals, and then animals and everybody, then of course I have so much capacity to collaborate, but then I sort of feel that's too much. I forget about the planet, I forget about all the good ideas, and I just need to get resources for myself, whether it's sleep or money or something else. So my sense is that of course, as we grow in terms of this consciousness, levels of consciousness and awareness, we become more open to more sophisticated structures. And Earthwise, I think, is a beautiful example of co-creating the future with very different types of initiatives and leaders, and having this larger goal or larger vision allows us to feel where we could come together in the long term. So answering our specific question, how can we together create 1,000, 10,000 eventually happy, flourishing, thriving cities? My sense is that it's very important to rely on our individual strengths. So for example, Puran or Tim, they understand technical platforms. I don't. My mind doesn't work this way. Marilyn has other sort of special talents, and I cannot do what Marilyn does, right? And it's the same for every one of us. So I think if we are true to ourselves, nature gives us energy. for all of our life to be productive, to be creative, and to really create results. So it's really finding our individual areas of super competence. And, some people are great communicators. And for example, others don't like to communicate. Some people are great architects of technological or social systems, and others are not. But you also need managers who take things and, create the very concrete results in a time frame and the budgets that we have. And that's also a skill and a talent I don't have, for example. So I think we have a general understanding of where we want to be. Cities is, in a sense, it's just one of the channels, right? There are corporations, there are nonprofits. You can slice our sort of pie in many different ways. So cities is another channel, cities where people feel connected to because they live, they work in the cities. That's the centers of power and energy. So we felt that we could naturally leverage this existing network of 10,000 cities because they're connected in many different ways. It's important to understand what can we offer to this channel, right? We have ideas, we have, let's say, solutions, we have products, platforms, etc. And I don't think that neither 10 of us nor 25 of us would be enough to change the world, completely. So it's a larger network or ecosystem of initiatives and leaders, but to find ways to interconnect in a constructive way where we can leverage our strengths, not to lose too much time, in the cracks when there are too many meetings, we get tired and we don't want to meet anymore, or we don't have time to. So finding the way to balance our interconnection, individual action, and action focused on the outside world, being 10,000 cities or whatever, 8 billion people, I think finding this balancing act, and as Puran also said, trusting the natural process to emerge, right? But still having some overall vision and big sort of dream or a goal, which Earthwise, for example, what I read in the Constitution is beautifully expressing, and maybe other initiatives as well. So that's where I feel we could go. So we should have a group of, and of course we already have many groups, but talking about our collaboration, we will, I think, naturally have a group of vision holders, right? People with big ideas who can work on meta level, etc. We will need a group of communicators, and this is very important because we need to influence people, right? We need some power to make change happen, not only in our minds, not only in our Zoom calls, but on a much larger scale. And we cannot do what we cannot do, right? So we have natural limits, that's fine. So my sense, just to finalize, is that we have a group, and it's not only those who are present here. We have larger connections, other groups we are connected to, but we have sort of a meshwork, right? A network of extremely talented, good-natured sort of people. I think we are all leaders in very different ways. And as Alexander said, by creating interconnections, going in the same direction, but being also flexible in who does what at what period, at what specific moment of time, and also leveraging all of our connections, resources, creating prototypes and then scaling them, right? So when I look at the systems that Puran and Peter were presenting today, of course with some adaptations, but my sense is it could be really scaled. It could help every municipality on the planet. So 10,000 cities could have one planet solution eventually. Do we need some external resources to do it, or the Kodu system, right, from Tim, for all the initiatives to cooperate? So we do need some external resources, and I'm sure that they are available. It's just a matter of packaging what we can do, creating connections, influencing those players, bringing them into the picture, giving them what they need to get. I'm talking very basic things, of course, but so that's my sense that we really are a network and meshwork of talents, and meshwork of super competencies, not only individual sort of bodies, but really, if we go down this path, my sense is that the natural emergence will take care of what needs to be done and how it will be done in an effective and productive and joyful way. So sorry for being very lengthy, and I pass it on to Alexander at this point.
Fantastic. Thank you much. Look, we had exactly the amount of time to be able to take 1 minute each. I'm going to go in the same order, so I'll start with Tim. But before Tim, so he can think about the question here, I would like in 1 minute, each of us to say our offer and our request. 1 minute each. But before, so Tim is going to be thinking about that while we ask Alexei to say whatever he would like that's in his heart about what's going on right now. Alexei.
Thank you, dear colleagues. And I believe that everything starts from the emotion, because it includes energy to motion or for motion. And you know me that I believe that everything great things are starting from the personal connections. And if we can get more connected personally, where we can create the magic space, I would say, right, for new ideas, new approaches, new visions, new tools, new approaches, we can really change the cities in a better way, right? And we can support many, many people around the planet. And I believe that connection, that's what additionally, of course, right, should be also at the focus of our attention. Of course, all technologies, platforms, solutions, education programs, services, and summits, and a lot of events are super important. At the same time, if we feel personally connected from heart to heart, if we can really feel inspiration, lightness, joy, happiness, at the current moment, we can bring more together. Thank you so much.
Phenomenal, Alexei. Thank you so much. I'm glad I brought you in. So now we will take then 1 minute each just to say what is our offer and our request, if you could please. Tim?
Thank you, Alexander, and thank you, Alexei. So my offer relates to that a bit. So my offer is, or our offer is an open source platform for visualizing connections, for showing connections, showing relationships, helping us find each other, find the others, to do just that. And my request is that you join and use it and tell me all the things it's missing and all the things it needs, so we can just keep improving it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim. Feriel. You're mutable.
Please, apologies. So I'm just going to focus in on the one part of it, which is SRG Journeys. And I'm going to say that my offer is an expanding roster of interpersonal development experiences, and a growing community of highly skilled and motivated individuals committed to continually kind of expanding the idea of personal, or I call it interpersonal development. It's also this gateway, this place of that initiation space, where it's how do you connect into those that bring value to your community and to what you're doing. So it's like my offer is, how do we help you and your organizations where you are bring that and help people human better so that they can do these collaborations. And then my request really would be, can I serve you? Right? And really, that's pretty much it from my side. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Phenomenal, Feriel. Thank you so much. And Alus.
Our offer is the Vice Constitution and Partnership Alliance for a Planetary Civilization. So you're all most welcome to join and work with that. You can freely adapt it to your own local context, even change the wording of the Constitution, because it just has a compass that you can contextualize. My request is if we can take some moments this weekend to join the cities of the earth, the cities of the birds, the ants, the bees, the butterflies, the plants, the trees. So Mother Earth has many beautiful living cities, and we are only just one of her species. So if we can just spend some time with the living cities of the Earth herself and be in communion with non-human life. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Luz. That's beautiful. The invitation to dialogue. I did want to mention also, by the way, the constitution that Anna-Luz mentioned is not a blueprint that's fixed. It is exactly a living, growing, collaborative document. And the idea is to have it emerge in that way interactively. Thank you again. Sandy, on to you.
My offer is actually two things. One is that I used to be a manager of a performing arts center. I learned a lot about managing there, and so I'm willing to offer those skills of like project management or managing the development of things. Secondly is I have a meeting tomorrow where
Wow, you have made it. You just watched amazing insights from experts of Living Cities Earth ecosystem. We welcome you to the Living Cities Earth experience and hope that we are going for a long ride as we take care of ourselves, our communities, our cities, and our planet. Thank you and welcome.